Hello and welcome to the Comics Pals review of Thor Love and Thunder, the latest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. One of the last installments of Phase 4. We've got 3 to go, I think. Um, and maybe the most divisive one yet, if you can believe that.
Ooh.
So we're gonna get into our review. This is full spoilers. We're not even gonna do a spoiler-free section. So if you haven't seen the movie, you're gonna want to tag out, watch it, and then come back and hear what we had to say about it. Before we get into that, I do want to let you guys know how you can support the Comics Pals. We are a comic book based podcast. We talk about the movies, the comics, TV shows, all that jazz. If you like that stuff, you'll like our main show, which is live on Twitch every single Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. We also review comics on Thursdays over on our show Pals Pulls, which is live 6 p.m. Eastern every single Thursday. That's over on Twitch. And like this video, share it with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Comics Pals, youtube.com/The Comics Pals. All that's free to do. Helps out a lot more than it costs you. We did a book club based on the origin of Gore, the God Butcher, Thor, God of Thunder. Go listen to that book club if you want to know where these characters are coming from. So, before we do the review, we got to play the game, the Rotten Tomatoes game. That's how we always start these things. These three, Kale, Marco, and Tyler, are going to guess the tomato meter score and the audience score, and it's Price is Right rules, meaning that you have to get as close as possible without going over the actual number. Who wants to be first up?
I got it. All right. Audience score, Mr. Audience. I'm going to say 79. And critics, I'm going to say 76.
Okay.
So you said 79,
76.
79, 76. Okay.
That might be low, but
So, audience, I'm going to go 82. And
Okay.
critics, I'm going to go 69.
Nice.
Oh, no. Yeah, no,
Oh, yeah.
that tracks. Yep. That's what I want. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I mixed them. But yeah, I want 69. I mean, yeah. Yep.
I mean, who doesn't?
True.
Kale.
I'm gonna say audience 73. I'm
Okay.
gonna say critics 55.
damn.
So 55 and 73.
55 critics, audience 73.
Got you. Okay. So, the actual score is the tomato meter is 67.
Ooh.
So that's
That's
the
for-
audience score. Or I'm sorry, that's the critic score. 67.
Just went over.
Yep.
Damn.
So Kale gets that. But the audience score is an 82. So Tyler hit it right on the
Wow.
money.
Wow.
Well, Marvel fans are friggin' MCU fans are shills.
But
We'll
Kale
let
would
them
still win. So congrats, Kale,
go. Man.
on winning
Fucked
the
by-
Rotten Tomatoes game.
Fucked by these Bob Barker rules. Got it.
All right. So Thor Love and Thunder is the fourth Thor film that we've gotten so far. And it appears to promise a fifth one, too.
It sure does.
Yep. It features, the usual cast of characters in a Thor film. We got Sif, the return of Sif. That was kind of cool. We got Valkyrie. We got Korg, a whole lot of Korg. We're going to talk about that. But we got the return of Jane Foster as the Mighty Thor. Pretty cool. And a new villain in Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale. So we've got a lot of characters to talk about in a film that sounds like it should have been meaty, right? A film that features not only the continuation of Thor's stories in the MCU, but a film that features the Guardians of the Galaxy, a film that introduces the concept of a pantheon of gods other than Asgardians, a film that tells the story of Gore the God Butcher, and a film that one and done's the mighty Thor story. All of that happens in 1 hour and 59 minutes. And I felt the fact that this movie was jam-packed and short, for sure.
I like how an hour and 59-minute movie is short.
Yeah.
For all that?
For all that.
Yeah.
I didn't. If anything, towards the middle part, we're on the black and white planet, it slowed down pretty hard. And I'm not gonna lie, took a quick nap.
I get bored. I just go to the bathroom now. Like,
Do you leave your seat?
hell yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I wasn't sure where the bathroom would come into play.
I get bored. I cause a commotion in the.
The theater.
When I get bored in a theater, I just piss myself.
Nice.
I thought it was paced okay. Like I didn't feel the length necessarily. I didn't feel that it all was too cramped. I think it evoked a very 80s action movie feel, which is just, beat action, beat action, beat action, and it worked for me. That formula worked, and I felt differently on that.
Yeah.
I thought pacing wise it was a mess. I felt like it was bouncing back and forth way too much towards the beginning. It isn't until we really get to like an Omnipotent City where like it's like, oh, all our characters are now together, we don't need to keep bouncing back and forth. But then that made the pace feel really slow at that point. And then I just this was like just in general, it's a real middling movie for me. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I think there is the people acting in this movie make this movie watchable. But I do think there's just in terms of, and I do wonder if it's my love for the source material and the fact that this is a god butchering of the source material, in my opinion. Maybe not a god butchering. It's a reimagining of the source material in a tone that is antithetical to the source material. I think that's where my issue is. Yeah, man. I don't know where you want to bring the discussion, Sean. I know we're talking about pace, but
Yeah. I just started there because it felt right. Kill, you didn't get to speak on that. Did you want
Pa pacing wise, especially at the beginning, it felt very, very quick, and it felt very, very obvious.
to? Yeah.
Everything felt like it was handed to you. Thor is here. I'm Thor. Great. Here we go. I'm going to this thing. Oh, the Guardians of the Galaxy are here. They're my best friends. Oh, they're leaving. And that's how the first half of the film felt to me. I did not like this film.
Yeah. Like I want to start pretty much right there. I didn't just not like this film. This was for me the worst of all of Phase 4, including Eternals. I think Eternals was better. I think Eternals was more ambitious. I think it was more interesting.
Right.
I think the only thing that redeems this movie is that it looks good, and the acting is strong.
I think for me, the thing that brings it together is that there is a satisfying emotional conclusion. Like at
there
the
is
end,
or isn't. I didn't hear what you said.
there is. Yeah, there is.
Okay, yeah.
Like at the end, I felt something.
Sure.
I'm with you there.
And then past that, like, this movie sucks shit. I'm just saying. Like,
What was the thing that you felt something for?
since we're full spoilers. Jane coming, Thor saying to Jane, "Listen, I need you alive." and he takes off, and then she shows up, and they have that moment, you know, between them. That's like, man, like I felt that.
Yeah.
That
And
there's like
then
an understanding look that they
yeah,
have to each other.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And even her, her death or whatever, I didn't that didn't do much for me, but that moment that they had together
Mm.
in the middle of the battle of that understanding really worked for me.
The death I think for me worked pretty well. I didn't like when it was contrasted with Gore and his concept of love, like
Yeah.
that sort of saving the day. I think in theory should work, and in practice kind of fell a little flat. But I gave it some grace because I did feel the loss there from Thor and for and what's her face and Mighty Thor, like that stuff to me worked well in my opinion.
For me, like the pieces are there in the terms of the story beats for this to be good. I think the Gore and Jane Foster Mighty Thor never really intersected in the comics. This is taking two separate and probably the most important parts of Jason Aaron's Thor run and combining them. And I think it does that in a smart way by turning the Necrosword into a thing that's also killing Gore. It shows these two characters were just normal people that are now becoming gods, but that power is killing them. And these are people who have, prayed to the gods and tried to, the gods have left them in love for Jane, and it left him to die for Gore. And I do like how they're kind of two sides of the same coin, and simultaneously, Thor himself is dealing with his godship in this. His whole arc has been from brash idiot to who just does what he wants to do, to being brash idiot who does things for other people. He's still an idiot, but he is a god for the people, unlike all of the other gods in this. There's even a little bit, it's very tiny, of the idea that gods are. I get like a 1% kind of feel from them. There's these people that are so high on their own supply that they don't see the own people that they wouldn't be gods without the people who worship them. So sure. There's like a working class thing there that they're like they don't even see that, they don't care, they're shit to those people. Again, very tiny. It's a fucking Disney movie. You're not going to see that actually on the text or even in the subtext without a magnifying glass.
That is a very generous reading.
Yeah, I can see.
And that I don't say that to say it's not there. I'm just saying that, like, boy, you had to think about that.
No, it's a Taika thing for that to be there. That's something Taika would tackle probably more head on in a non-Disney movie. But again, it's a Marvel movie, so that's there. But for me, it's like those parts are there, and I think it's smartly intertwined. And I think the acting is good. But holy hell, nobody edited Taika. They were like, hey, what you're doing is great. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves what you're doing with, everyone loved Ragnarok. All this stuff that you've been doing, and he is doing a shit ton of stuff right now. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves you. Do your thing. And nobody told him to hold back at all. Yeah. And that's the core of the movie. It is too cute. It's too funny. It doesn't let anything breathe. Like, if they had let those stories that I mentioned breathe and have weight, this might be a good movie.
Funny in the bad way, Sean.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I hardly cracked a smile throughout a lot of this stuff in this movie.
What, dude? Yeah, I had full-on chuckles and laughs.
There's a couple where I have a good point, but like the whole goats thing, like I love Tooth Grinder and Teeth Gnasher, like in the comics, they're great. But it's like Taika saw the goat screaming video and it's like, oh, that's funny. And just put that in rule of threes, Taika. Yeah, rule of threes. Like, don't. It's the rule of 30 for that joke for Taika. Even in the quiet moments where like Thor and Jane are talking, it's just jokey throughout it. This is the this is emblematic of the thing that has been kind of annoying me about Marvel movies as of late. It's like they don't. One of the things I enjoyed about Eternals, but it went too far in the wrong direction, where it doesn't let things breathe and have weight and gravitas to it. And a story about gods and how they affect the people. Prime place to showcase that, and instead they make jokes and say the word shitty a lot.
Man,
it's funny to
That
curse,
was
guys.
whack. That was.
they
whack.
said shit so much in this film. It's like Disney gave them a license to say shit. And I don't want to be like an old conservative woman, like, oh, all that foul language. It's just like, man, they said shit a lot.
But it's not funny, and it's so, like, okay, you get one over,
Yeah.
one or two, all right, but like over and over and over again, like, it's not funny. If you were saying anything that many times, it would lose its heat.
Yeah.
The funniest parts of this movie weren't the jokes. It was the delivery of certain, like Russell Crowe as Zeus doing an old man Greek accent.
Yeah.
Was
so good.
hilarious. I thought that was fantastic. I thought his Zeus was great, but like that was him. That was his choice to do that. I would assume.
He
It's
brought
not the
that to life.
Yeah, he brought that to life, and even like the bits with like Star-Lord and Thor, I kind of had fun with that little interaction. But that was what 30 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
Which they showed in the
and-
trailers almost
Yeah,
entirely.
and little did I know that that kind of jokiness would not stop as soon as that started happening.
Right.
Yeah, I felt this movie felt like the guy at the party, and I've been this guy who just won't stop joking, and it's like, all right, we get it.
Yeah.
Maybe get diagnosed next time.
So, Marco, you're now taking that position
Yeah,
of
I
being
know.
the lone person.
I feel
You guys ever play Mario Party and like right before the game starts, it flicks
Yeah.
around to see who's gonna face off? It's three of us against Marco right now.
You
That's
got
what
the
it
green
is.
square, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. Why did you like it?
I liked it, I think, because coming off of the book club, right? I had to do a really hard readjustment of my expectations, and because that book was incredible for me, and I knew off the bat it wasn't going to be that kind of thing. So I went in with no expectation. I went in purely off of all right, I'm going to go see this movie. I've been hearing it's not great, whatever. I'm going to go in with just whatever Taika's going to throw at me. I'm going to absorb, and some of it is, I think, repetitive. He plays too many of the bits, but I didn't mind because I knew I wasn't gonna get what I was expecting in the comics, and so I just let it roll. And for me, these things work. The jokes, I think, being introduced back to back made it feel like a comedy, and fine. I enjoyed it. The relationship between Thor and Jane, I think, worked well for me. It would get undercut by the jokes, but I didn't mind the jokes. I expected it at this point, and because I have those expectations that it's going to be a joking movie, I just let it roll. And they landed better for me because of that. And I felt for their relationship, and the concept of needing to let go of that love so that way you could grow as an individual person. Maybe that hit home. I don't know, but I definitely felt that and connected with it, and so yeah, it landed well. It landed well for all those aspects. The goat shit was annoying, and I think Korg, I expected worse.
There's a lot of
Because
Korg in this.
A lot of Korg in it, but I somehow I expected worse because of what was going on with Twitter and like initial feedback. So I was thinking like he was going to be in literally every single scene or something, and he was there pretty frequently, but it wasn't as bad as I expected.
You needed to put a cork in it.
There you go.
I did feel something though when he almost died. I was like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah, I was like, oh,
I'll give him that. Yeah.
I actually found gore to be the least annoying thing in this film.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And
I didn't mind it.
and that's like I found Thor more annoying than gore.
well, let's kind of dive in. So the movie starts with Gore and showing us his origin. Right from the moment the shit started, I knew this movie wasn't it.
Yeah.
Because it took, and I feel like it does this a lot, it took what was this really emotional thing in the book where, like, it's not just them, it's their entire planet, and you can see it happening. It takes that and it shrinks it down to just Gore and his child, and his child dies. And the sin, the biggest sin of all, is that Gore is praying to the gods. Now, Tyler did a great job of breaking down what the Gore angle was and how that cross-sectioned with Jane and why that made sense to make him a worshiper in this particular story. But I also think you used a great word, which was antithetical. I think that was completely antithetical to the Gore character. Almost to the point where using the name of the character was pointless. Because I did not feel like I was watching Gore in this movie at all.
Yeah, me either.
I did my best to try to disconnect myself from the comic, because that's not Taika's problem. But I think the comic version is stronger. And I think that this version doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, because it makes sense. It just doesn't have weight to it.
The thing is, the comic version cannot exist in a comedy. Like, that is not a funny character. So, do you have to make concessions to fit a comedy? Yeah, I think so. But I think if we're talking about the origin of Gore too, I think they took away one of the other major parts of it. Gore kills a god who needs his help. All of a sudden, that the call to action is, "Oh, I'm not going to help you," rather than he got mocked by one of the vampires from What We Do in the Shadows playing a god. Great to see him in here. From the movie, not the TV show.
Oh,
He's the guy who always wants to have the biscotti. I forget the actor's name, but he plays the god there. But it sets it up like, oh, well, this is how we do this in a comedy, because it makes jokes right away.
yeah.
And
I don't
instead,
know.
it's like
I think,
the sword calling him to do this, rather than Gore making that decision.
okay,
himself.
Awful.
Yeah. That's the thing for me is immediately the complexity of Gore was gone. You know, like I could forgive, you know, the thing, you know, it's just him and his daughter. For me, it was, oh no, his god is shitty. These gods are shitty. They should be killed. Like it clearly sets him up as someone who's doing like a morally great thing, but like when you're watching it, like you're positioned is that he's right.
Yeah, it almost feels like the thing to do.
Yeah, and that takes the complexity out of the rest of the film.
It's also the exact same thing they did with Wanda. They made her under control, just like he's under control. None of these villains have had agency to where they're doing what they want to do. And I think that lack of agency removes the heat from a villain. They have to want it, or you have to feel so bad for them that they're doing what they don't want to do that it allows you to sympathize. I didn't feel that way. If Gore, I would imagine, right, in my mind, that a guy who just saw his daughter die and now is being mocked by a person who could have stopped it but didn't and chose to not, right, that you would want to kill them.
Yeah.
So why do you need to be controlled?
Yep.
Yeah,
Just let him do it.
The motive's there.
Right, exactly. You don't need to make it so that he's not wanting to do it to redeem him, because right now I'm with him.
I think it is all done to make his turn at the very end more palatable. But I think you can still have that turn even with the initial
Yeah, absolutely.
motive. Yeah.
Like at that point, it becomes an ideological shift, and that seems to be more important. That would be more important.
Yeah, and I think showing Thor himself being a god that actually helps the people could have been the catalyst to make that ideological shift happen.
That's a huge failure as well.
Yeah,
is that they don't. It never feels like the movie, because we're watching it, we get it. It never feels like the movie is juxtaposing Gore and Thor.
Yep.
Like the comic does. Yep. It never feels like the movie is saying something about Thor through Gore. And it never feels like Gore is looking at Thor and evaluating his position based on Thor. In the comic, and I don't mean to continuously reference it, but it's, Thor is antithetical to what Gore feels gods are. And that's why he's obsessed with him.
It's a tongue twister.
I know, right? Yeah. Jesus.
But see, that to me is where I think I had to remove myself from those feelings, because otherwise I was bound to be disappointed. And I didn't want to make the comparison, because I knew it wasn't going to be that, and I didn't think that would be fair to assess it based off, as much as it was an adaptation, right? And that's a very loose term when you compare the two. But I didn't want to have the movie impact my reading of the book.
Well, see, this is the issue, right? You like the movie, I don't. So if I like the movie, then that would mean that I could overlook the fact that it wasn't the same because it was good. Thanos is not the one-to-one character from the comics. They've totally removed his obsession with death, the character, but I love it.
Makes an Easter egg in this movie, which is great. Yeah.
Yes, but I love it because they make him the MCU version, and he works for the MCU. Sure. I don't feel like this version of Gore worked even within the context of this movie, because the things that you could look at and say, well, this is obvious, they don't even do.
There's 2.5 movies going on in this one movie. Or right. 1.5 movies. It's the romantic comedy between Jane and Thor. That's the movie. And then Gore's had his own separate movie that's trying to get into this plot line and sort of does, but not fully. And I think it's visible. It's like, oh, that Gore's plot line, I can see it. The skeleton's there. But it's fighting to it's like you go to a party and two people are having a conversation and you're trying to wait for that moment where like, maybe I can jump into the conversation now, and then you've done it too long and now you're just awkwardly standing there.
It's a bit like this podcast. No,
yeah.
Just kidding. How did you guys like Christian Bale though? Like, though Gore, the story was like, whatever. I thought Christian Bale brought it. I kind of liked Gore.
The story was ass, but Christian Bale was phenomenal. Yeah. And he managed to actually introduce a level of creepiness to Gore that didn't, for me anyway, all the way translate in the comic.
Yeah.
Like, he really brought the version of the character that they wanted to use to life.
Kale, do you know what kind of British accent he was doing in this? This wasn't his accent. It felt like a more everyman British accent, which tracks for Gore.
It almost felt a little South African. I could be way off on that, but it felt like
I worked with South Africans for a year. I wasn't getting South African.
No, okay. Well, I'm not going to sit here and spitball then. Like,
just throw out some British dialects. I don't know. I mean, I know nothing. You could say anything, and I can agree with you because I don't know. So,
well, I did that, and you didn't agree with me. So,
but yeah, Christian Bale does a really good job. I don't think this movie has an acting problem. I really don't, and I actually think it's one of the better acted films in Phase 4. The scene where Bale's with the kids and stuff, like creepy, weird. Go ahead.
I like that it gave him a bit more of a personality than I think we had in the comics, because in the comics he was so driven. But in this one, it felt like it gave him a little bit of time, and we didn't see it as much, but it gave him a little bit of time to try to convince the kids that their gods weren't coming.
Right.
And that to me felt really good.
Speaking of acting, the Melissa McCarthy, Matt Damon bit. God, you guys didn't like that? Yo, that killed for me.
I like the
They
second
did it
bit.
again.
I like the second bit where in the time in a time of crisis they were like, well, we need to put on art. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. That's fine.
That was
That's
funny, yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. So Gore's ultimate goal in this movie is there's this, what would you call it? Like a not a MacGuffin because it's not an object, but like a I would say
it's a MacGuffin.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
It's, the wish is the object.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So he wants to get to this place that Zeus mentions where the first person to get there can make a wish for whatever they want. Which was I the only person who was rolling their eyeballs like the Undertaker at the idea that it's existed for all this time and no one has gone there?
Yeah.
Like
the Eternals don't know about this. Like Thanos had to find this magic glove and he couldn't go find the magic box or whatever the fuck. Like,
and worse, Thor's finding out about it for the first time, I think.
Yeah.
But Gore already knows about it.
Yeah.
Gore's a random backwater planet person.
Ding
that was
dong.
Yeah, like
He must have killed the right god then. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I guess. But that's his ultimate goal. They remove the god bomb essentially from the equation. They're baking the concept of the god bomb into this wish so that he can use the wish to eliminate all gods. Felt hollow. I would have liked to have seen Gore doing more of the killing himself, or at least they're probably not going to get into the enslaving, which I think they could have done a really good job with, given the gods that they have access to. I think that could have been fun. But they choose not to do that. But even just to see more of Gore, I kind of feel like, I guess my biggest thing with Gore, and I won't talk about it more, I wish he had his own movie. That this movie didn't have to have the rom-com aspect.
Yeah.
Because I think it took so much away from what they could have done. And I think that the direction and the vibe of Thor 1 is what I would really like to see the Thor movies shift back to, because I think that version of these movies could have done justice to Gore's story.
Even just a degree. Like,
yeah.
Like, not even like,
yeah.
Dial it back down to Ragnarok level slightly. And I think it would have worked a lot
better. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
But I agree. It's just way too like. I do wonder what a Kenneth Branagh God Bomb story would have been like.
Unreal.
Again, I just think of the bleached eyebrows, though. The color grading on that original Thor movie annoyed the hell out of me. But yeah, it's somebody should have told Taika, like, hey, bud, a little bit down.
Yeah, turn it from 11 to at least 10.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of the story, is the Gore stuff. Let's talk about the Jane Foster Mighty Thor stuff. I think we're all of us that know Mighty Thor from the books. Marco, I don't know if you've seen her much.
Thor?
We're all fans. She's a great character, and I think one of the characters that people were most excited to see make their screen debut, I would say probably her and Kamala for Phase 4. I think they did a pretty good job in terms of just taking the same Jane Foster character that we've seen, making her a little bit more established. They used the time we've had away from her to give her more accolades and establish that she's actually a brilliant scientist and a doctor and all this stuff. And I thought that was all great. And then give her a reason to want be saved, I guess. Not necessarily want the power of Thor, but to be saved. You know, for yeah. I thought that was well done. But again, I think her story here was totally rushed. I really would have appreciated just letting them both be Thor and, you know, not do the death of Mighty Thor so quickly. I would have liked to see that play out over a longer period of time. But I think for what they wanted, I think Natalie Portman does a great job. And I think the script serves her well enough.
I have an expectation, and I don't necessarily know how they do this, but the introduction and death works for the plot of this film. But they're keeping her now in Valhalla for some sort of eventual, like, full replacement.
She becomes Valkyrie in the comics.
Yeah. In the comics, she does go to Valhalla and decides, I'm good, and leaves.
Okay, So then in that case, like I have an expectation that the introduction and death here was for those emotional beats for this film, and she's gonna come back some point down the line to like do a full replacement where we can see her over a longer period of time there.
This might be overly ambitious, but I was thinking that, you know, if she were to die in a, you know, in a different circumstance, that's a plot beat that could have been saved for an Avengers type of film. Like if you, you know, and then it would make sense that she would get to go to Valhalla. Not that it didn't make sense, but it would be like, wow, you know, you saved everyone. Like, we want you here, you know, something like that. But point taken.
I like that she sought out, you know, the mystical Viking magic or whatever, and she didn't get it because of Thor,
right?
But like because, I don't know, for lack of a better phrasing, I guess, like because the hammer knew her.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so it was based on her own merit more than, you know, had anything else to do with Thor. I thought that was handled really well.
Yep.
And then it felt sort of another dumb phrasing. It felt like they were beating us over, hammering us over the head with it. But, you know, in the middle of the, you know, the rom-com bits, Thor telling Mjolnir to protect her was a bit much. Like, I didn't like that. Yeah. I feel like the thing, you know, when you have it, you know, when you see what she's going for, and then you remember, oh yeah, Mjolnir knows who she is. Of course, he'd want to work with her or protect her or whatever. I feel like that stands by itself, whereas the Thor stuff, whispering to the hammer, kind of weakens that.
It's funny because I feel like this movie says things it doesn't need to say, and then it doesn't say things I think it needed to say. Like a look could have done what you're describing, like what you're describing, getting that point across. I think a look could have done that, or just you assume Thor would want that. I don't know that it needed to be expressed explicitly in that way. Thor talks to his hammer. I didn't know that.
Man, that drove me fucking crazy.
That was
that
was bad.
The hammers are jealous of each other. Oh my gosh, shut the fuck up. God,
that shit worked for me.
If you watch the Taika Waititi,
goofy.
Did you guys remember those shorts that they did where Thor was like a roommate?
Yeah.
That was Taika. In fact, his roommate shows up in this. He's a tour guide showing off the hammer.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So like I think Thor had a bed for his hammer in those as well. So like it's just a Taika thing.
But see, even like that part didn't bother me. Like, you know, there are elements of that like make sense. But it was the you know, the constant, oh, Stormbreaker's jealous.
Sure, yeah.
It's a stick with a rock on it. Fuck off. Stick.
I see the point of it. The point is to showcase their emotions more physically through the hammers. It's their emotions towards each other. Because they're not going to speak it out loud. They have too much pride, or they just don't want to talk about it. So the hammers are doing it for them.
I don't think
but it
so,
was
man.
a lot. It was a lot.
It felt like just another bit in a movie that had too many bits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what did you guys think about, you know, her arc? Like, did it satisfy you?
For me,
Marco,
it
you kind of
did.
spoke to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely thought so. You get her conflict. You get her being a hero and it not necessarily paying off in the way that she actually wanted it to, where it was healing her. That for me, I'm like, oh, okay. I thought she was just gonna like perpetually be in Thor mode and that's it. She just doesn't ever get sick again, or like it extends her life that way. But the fact that it didn't and it actually had a counter effect was interesting and created attention for Thor. And then in the end, when she makes it, that same look that Kale called out, I felt that too. That worked for me because she knew the consequences, but she did so out of a love for him and wanting to ensure that he was safe. And then she dies in his arms. That to me is a solid arc. I felt that all the way through and through.
I mean, I was actually happy they went through with it. You know, there was a part of me at the end where it was like, yo, I swear to God, if Gore fucking saves Jane, I'm going to be fucking pissed. Because I was like, they didn't earn that at all. That makes no sense. Don't do it. And they didn't do it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. And then Jane dies. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, they went for it. Her story is there. That is her story. His story is the power that it was essentially saving her was also killing her. And it eventually does. And they follow through with it, which I was happy with. Sure, she's in Valhalla, and now Valhalla exists in the MCU, and now they can bring back anyone. Even I guess Loki would be there too, main Loki. Because TV series Loki is not our Loki, so anyone could come back now, I guess. But I thought that her whole story was there. I'm a big Natalie Portman fan too, so like she was not an issue for me in this movie at all. In fact, maybe I could have dealt with more of her.
Again, I don't think any of the actors were the issue at all.
I really liked her eagerness as Thor. You know, like I found her her catchphrase thing
That was fun.
charming. Yeah.
I thought she was going to say it's hammer time. Like I was expecting it.
That would have been fun.
Yeah. It felt like if if Jess came to me, was hanging out with me at like a Common Writer conference or something.
Okay.
Like that's just somebody eager to impress and fit in with the fans. You know,
enthusiastic and you can feel that. Yeah, that worked out really good. And it pays off in the end with her like her three things. One, I'm not Lady Thor. Two, whatever, and then eat my hammer, some shit.
Two, if you can't, I'm the Mighty Thor. If you can't say that, I'm Dr. Jane Foster.
Yeah,
that's a good line.
Yeah.
And
she kicked ass.
Yeah, it paid off.
And the whole cancer thing is a ticking clock that does well for a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think well, I already said I feel like this movie falls apart immediately. But I think this movie is the greatest representation of everything that people don't like about the MCU. I feel like it takes all of that and it dials it up and it puts it right in your face. And it's like, hey, all these things that annoy the shit out of you, we're going to do it for an hour and 59 minutes.
Here.
And go ahead.
To add on to that, I feel like this movie also takes it to another level of like, oh, you've been asking for less committee, more auteur-driven things. Here it is. Let's paint this whole film with Taika's brush.
And that's another major key that I wanted to get into, which is that, at least for me, this era of auteur-driven Marvel movies ain't working. I really don't think it's working. There just has to be some type of like, cage you're working in. I just feel that way.
You say that, and I kind of agree with it. And I think, but that Sam Raimi-ness was really good in fucking Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the creator.
And I think you're right, but you also have to remember that Doctor Strange was a, development hell movie. Like Scott
Yeah.
Derrickson was on it for how long before Sam Raimi agreed to come on, and how many things were shifted around and did so many things, and how much Sam Raimi came out of Doctor Strange 2 when the Marvel machine was also like at the whip, just
Yeah.
beating the hell out of it at the same time.
And I mean, it's worth pointing out, divisive movie as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't like
Fair.
it.
And to contrast that, I really like Doctor Strange to the point I'm afraid to watch it again because I might
Me
not
too.
like it.
Me too. Yeah. I know it's on Disney Plus, and like I've thought about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
I'm no longer interested in what Taika has to say about Thor. Respectfully, I'm not interested.
And I gotta say, I know he's doing a Star Wars movie, and I'm horrified.
Yeah. That I don't want that kind of this kind of vibe for a Star Wars movie.
And that's what it's going to be because
Oh
Yep.
no,
Because my man has carte blanche in Disney at the moment.
no.
we haven't talked about the action at all. And I think for me, action is one of the weaker elements of Thor films in general.
Oh.
And I think that I feel that way about this one too.
What?
Yeah, I thought the action was a little bit weak. Mighty Thor was cool. I liked some of the stuff that she did. The way her hammer use was different than Thor's.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. There's something about Thor in these movies where I don't think they give him much from an action standpoint. And I think toning Gore's powers down kind of made them tone down Thor's power to match what Gore was doing. So all in all, I wasn't that pleased. And a lot of the time they were fighting like borderline shapeless, shadowy things that were not visually interesting.
I also think they shift away from Thor a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Like there's never one Thor fight. It's Thor and a bunch of everybody else. And I feel like Ragnarok was that way a lot too.
I enjoyed those elements. The fact that it was them plus Valkyrie and Mighty Thor just kicking ass, like it worked for me because I came in looking at it as like, okay, this is another 80s action film, right? It's just big explosions, hard cuts to people getting smacked over the head. And for me, when the kids got all the parts of Thor's powers, that scene worked really well for me. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was
That
cool.
was fun.
That was
Yeah.
good. I thought the opening Thor scene at that planet where he just outshines the Guardians, and he's just fighting a whole bunch of like owls, sweetums looking things. I thought that was good. I thought that was a fun thing. I thought him doing a Jean-Claude Van Damme split, which is probably something he learned from a video Quill probably had in his ship somewhere.
God, that's
Yeah.
funny.
I thought that was great. I thought him fucking up the church was great. Like that was a good part. But we don't get that again until we get a little bit of it at Omnipotent City. But there's more stuff going on there. We don't get till the end of the movie. We get like bookended by Thor stuff. When I think a Thor movie should have a lot more cool Thorisms,
Yeah.
But
It's a shame that the coolest things that have happened with Thor are not in Thor movies. Like, I think his best moments have been in
Mostly.
Avengers films.
I think the top for me is probably the climax of Ragnarok.
that's good. Yeah.
But other than that, like you're right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And again on the action tip, I would have loved to have seen more one-on-one from Thor and Gore. That would have been cool. And I felt like Mighty Thor kind of got relegated in the last fight. Which is why it was kind of weird that they so in the book, there are 3 Thors. I'm not going to get into how that goes down, but there's King Thor, which is old Thor. There's modern Thor, which you could equate to this Thor, I guess. and then there's like young Thor. And they all fight Gore basically at the same time. They're kind of doing different things too, but they're also a part of the fight. I wish they would have either given Mighty Thor something interesting to do that was necessary, or let Thor and Thor fight Gore at the same time. Because her just fighting those shadow ghouls, I didn't love.
They did that for a second
Yeah.
toward the end of the fight, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
But even their fight on the planet, where she and Valkyrie fight the big shadow things, and he goes after Gore, I thought that was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a lot.
And you bring up Valkyrie. I think that's one of the things that really annoyed me about this movie was the severe lack of Tessa Thompson.
Yeah, you mean that she got sidelined so the white people could have their climax?
Her biggest speaking role was her drunkenly talking to Korg's face at the little cocktail lounge. And I first of all, Tessa Thompson.
Oof.
Tessa Thompson. But secondly, her biggest character development is dictated to her by Korg. Like nothing really happens. She just seems fed up. Tessa Thompson is a good I'm fed up sort of thing. I think there are peaks at her relationship with Jane that are really fun, but they're just peaks. I would have loved to see more interaction directly between those two.
Again, I think that there are two distinct movies here. I really do. I think a movie of Mighty Thor interacting with Valkyrie, them being best friends, Valkyrie showing her the ropes, having to deal with Roxxon like in the comics. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Shit, I would have had Christian Bale playing this guy from Roxxon that turns into that demon.
Oh, Dario Agger. That's who I thought he was going to play originally. Yeah,
me too. I thought the story was going to be, here's a guy who takes on the, visage of an evil demon, and here's a woman who becomes a god. I thought that was going to be what they were going to do.
And there's your
that's a great
story.
Movie.
Yeah.
And that movie, I think, makes a lot more sense with the tone that Taika was going for.
Agreed.
But there's also a Gore Thor movie, and they're smashed together and they don't work. And that's my biggest problem. I think this movie is worse than Thor: The Dark World.
Oh,
I think I agree.
I really do.
I think in the way that Thor: The Dark World tries to be an ultra serious superhero movie, this goes hard in the opposite way, but tries to hang on to it at the same time.
Yep.
And it fails.
It's weird. We can list all four Thor movies on a scale, with like Thor: The Dark World being on one end, and this one being on the other end, with Ragnarok being closer to this one, and then Thor 1 being closer to Thor 2. Like maybe the fifth one can finally hit that middle ground on that graph.
That's all we need. That's the part that kills me so much, and I do hope that they get to that point. But as we wind down, I want to talk about the supporting characters just a little bit more. Yeah. We talked about Tessa Thompson. She's great, not given a lot to do. I think she could have been better served. Sif, Jamie Alexander, I believe, plays Sif.
Yeah.
She's just in there for a beat. It's not too much. She puts a distress call out to Thor, and she lost her arm, which really sucks. But they haven't given her much to do in a long time.
Yeah.
The supporting character who I feel like gets the most is Korg.
Yeah.
And
it's probably because Taika plays him.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed masturbatory.
To me, it felt masturbatory. It felt excessive. And I think when you're talking about, a directorial hostile takeover of a film, like, can you get any more takeovery than a dude putting himself in a movie and that character getting more screen time than characters that people actually give a shit about?
And also narrating the film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was rough.
I will say
those history sections worked for me. The stories, because it it was a nice way to transition you into different moments and different like headspaces for these characters.
Again, though, I think that's the separate movie. Like, if you want to make a
Yeah.
Thor rom-com, make a Thor rom-com. Like, people will show up for that. It was good, but it was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And I was pissed off. I was pissed off for the second time for the same reason in a different movie. At the beginning, where he's doing the recap of Thor's whole MCU history. And then it gets to the Warriors 3, and it's like, I killed that guy, and this guy, and that guy. I'm like, no, that's fucking Volstagg. Why would you?
Yeah.
Like, the comic nerd in me was like, yo, you're just going to namelessly kill him again? Again? But I realized there's only like 3 Warriors 3 fans out there. But
And you're looking at them. Like they were big parts of the first 2 films, right? Like, it's not our fault he, threw him in the garbage. Like, we like those characters.
Right. They got dumped.
I say all that, but at the end where he makes that one joke where Korg meets his new life partner named Dwayne the Rock guy, really?
Yes.
I was like, all
Okay.
right.
It's
That's
funny and
funny,
cute,
yeah.
but by that point in the movie, I was ready to go home. Like,
Yeah.
Tapped out.
yeah. I'd seen enough of Korg, and like they still got me. The moment where he died, loses his whole body, I was like, oh no, Korg. But like I could have felt that way if there was 50% less Korg.
Yep.
I would have still felt it. They did enough work in Thor Ragnarok to where I like the character a lot.
Do we care about Hercules?
So the end credits shot is one of them. Zeus is, basically telling his son Hercules, we got to get revenge. I thought Hercules was going to be in this movie proper, not in the after credits.
He should have been.
He should have been. I thought it would have been cool if he was one of the gods that, like, had they gone with the idea of like enslaved gods.
Yeah.
If he was one of them, or maybe he helps them on the journey, something like that, I thought would have been great. But they're going for a Thor versus Hercules thing, which
I think they're going something different.
okay.
First of all, it's Brett Goldstein from Ted Lasso, so great choice to play Hercules.
Is that the smiley guy from Sonic?
No.
Dr. Robotnik's sidekick?
No, a different guy, but they look similar.
They really look similar.
Yeah, I don't think that's Brett Goldstein. I can't imagine that. Maybe. I don't know. No, it's not. It's not him. But the way I see it is that Hercules is a great foil for where Thor is now. Because Hercules is what Thor was in Thor 1. So I think they need a whole movie together. He is the brash god who's wants to live up to his dad's image. That's what we're seeing. And I think it's going to be a face turn for Hercules and whatever Thor 5 is. And our main villain is Ares. Like, that's what I'm calling. I think it's God War.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I just think like
yeah.
that scene was meant to, hey, they're gonna go head to head. Imagine
Set
this
them
clash.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also
Which
West
we,
Coast Avengers.
which we won't see them actually beat each other up because of the way they show Thor fighting.
Yeah, true.
So-
They'll have a drinking competition instead.
They'll cut to Korg.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I was like, oh, okay, cool, Hercules.
I think at this point, like, Marvel would be better off doing. I mean, for a lack of, they would be better off doing what they did for the Illuminati, like put these surprises in the film. The after credits stuff is, I think it's old now.
It's also a little lazy. Like they did the same thing in Eternals. Twice in Eternals. Instead of showing me where our Marvel, it used to be, it would be an appetizer for where the Marvel universe was going forward. Now it's just like, hey, here's a pop, here's cheap pop.
Yeah.
Right, and that I wish that I had thought about that because that is a huge factor in why the Phase 4 movies are feeling hollow for me, is that not only have I not enjoyed the movies, but they're also not teasing me with what's happening within the MCU. Like, there's so many characters we're curious about. Where the fuck they at?
Yeah, I thought about saying it, but I couldn't say it without mentioning Hercules because Hercules is emblematic of it.
Right.
Like, because you know what? I still fucking popped. He had the cudgel. He had the perfect costume. I was like, I'm a big Hercules guy. I love Hercules. So seeing him, I was like, yeah. But like, also, you're not telling me where it's going. They did the same thing in Eternals with fucking Star Fox and Pip the Troll. Like, you introduced them, but like I couldn't tell you where those guys are going to show up next.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
The thing is, like, it's not. Oh, Hercules. Who cares? It's like, oh, cool, Hercules. Okay.
When,
Yeah.
you know, like where, like, all right, so you're teasing me for a movie that I'm not going to see for like 3 years, maybe.
It's
longer,
yeah. It's
probably.
you're not giving me a reason to come back.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
characters aren't enough anymore.
These movies don't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So when I see Thor 4, my next thing is not like, oh gosh, I can't wait till Thor 5. My next thing is I can't wait till whatever the next MCU movie is. So you got to tease me with the whole deal. Tease me about something that is more immediate than that.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi did the same thing.
What'd you think of Love at the end there, or the new status quo for Thor?
Is that a character?
No,
Not to my knowledge.
it's not. It's also played by Chris Hemsworth's daughter.
Oh.
Is
I
it
thought it was
Chris
Taika's.
Hemsworth or Taika's?
I thought it was Taika's.
I thought it was Hemsworth's daughter.
I'm unaware.
I didn't get it. Like I get it, but I'm also a bit like, why?
Yeah, it's Hemsworth's daughter. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep. Because I thought like in that one scene where they're in that ship and they have a little banter, I was like, oh, this feels real. This is good. I liked the kind of feeling I got between them. And then here's the thing. I'll admit, I haven't really liked Superman until he became a dad. Like that's where it started clicking for me. Dad Thor, not dad bod Thor, but like dad Thor. It is something I have not seen before. I'm okay with that as a status quo. Like at the end of the movie, I was like, you know what, fine. I can see where this goes. Running I guess enemy number one of the gods, and them trying to outrun them. I thought it was interesting, but
I think I hated how they got there. And I feel like they really, really tried hard to get to that point. You know, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe Gore would make that wish, but I don't know. For me, it just didn't ring true. But you know, Thor having a daughter now, someone to care for, to take care of, I think that's a good place for Thor. But I don't think they did enough emotional work with the character to convince me that he would be a good person to care for a child.
Yeah.
Especially a child that isn't his,
right?
and he just kind of adopts. I'm not saying he won't love her or whatever, but it doesn't set up like a long-term thing for me. It feels a bit more like we'll probably lose her in the next film.
Oh shit! I hope we don't lose her.
Young Avengers,
like,
young Avengers. I'm just saying.
Who's she gonna be?
Too young.
Love.
Maybe a play on Thor's daughter from the next Avengers. What was her name? Like Thor, Thundrin or something like that.
I don't remember her name, but yeah. And he does have grandkids. Maybe they're not really his.
True. Yeah.
Not biologically his. I meant to say. So let's close it out with our number score, our numerical score here, and some final thoughts.
3.
Is this out of 10?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well,
Okay.
It ain't 3 out of 5. I felt this movie. I think Kurt Busiek said it best on Twitter. He said, "A steak is good with a little bit of salt. A lot of salt can ruin a steak," and I think that's this movie. Mm-hmm. There is a lot on this film, and it has good points, and I can consider it successful in that it tells a story and it did make me feel something, but everything else around it was annoying and it made me not want to be there.
I'm giving this a 7.5. I had fun. I thought the bits landed. Some were overplayed, but not all, in my opinion. And similar to Kale, I think there was an emotional resonance that connected with me, with Gore, with Jane and Thor, and yeah, I think this is probably the most I've ever turned off my brain for a movie, and it's that's specifically coming out of the book club, because I didn't want to have that affect my what I felt for that book, and otherwise, it definitely has its issues, and we highlighted a few already, but I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would recommend it to anybody who is not ready to turn off their brain, but if you want to go see a Taika ass movie, this is it.
I would say watch Hunt for the Wilder People instead, but for me, I give it a 5.5, right down the middle, and an extra 0.5 for Tessa Thompson.
Tessa Thompson, yeah.
Tessa Thompson being bored.
I mean, her being uninterested in this whole movie, I think, awakened something in me. I don't know what it was, but
Yeah, she really got the shaft in this one.
No, she didn't. She was trying.
she wasn't.
And-
She was trying to get the opposite of Shaft.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
it depends on which definition of shaft you're going by.
True.
they didn't. Yeah, they didn't do her justice on any level. Anyways, it's a Marvel movie.
So it's bad.
Wow. I'm gonna give it a 4. I think.
Yikes.
Yeah, I really just didn't like. I'm not gonna say I didn't have a good time at some points, because I did.
Yeah.
And I thought the performances were strong, and it was fun to watch the actors doing what they were doing. But it made it that much more disappointing that everything else wasn't good. That they had this shell of something that could have been good, and then everything they put on it was bad. At least for me. I would have loved to have seen this same general idea with a different director. I think that's my biggest takeaway. It just misses the mark by so far that I'm really surprised at how much they didn't edit this film. Apparently, there are a lot of deleted scenes. I've read a lot. There's been a lot of conversation about the amount of deleted scenes. You can tell from watching the trailers, a lot of stuff missing. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of alternate cut. But I don't think that that's what I'm looking for. I think I'm looking for a different person to have made the movie. And I say that with all respect. But I don't want Taika's vision for Thor anymore. I would rather not go see a Thor 5 if it's by the same director. That's where I'm at.
How about this, Sean? Taika Waititi's X-Men.
No, holy shit. That would be the worst announcement they could make.
Did you
rather they
pucker
say
up
Zack
thinking
Snyder.
that? Yeah. Because I clenched when I heard myself say that. So
I would rather watch Zack Snyder's Thor 4 than Taika's Thor.
the thing too is, like, I like Taika and I know he could do something good. This wasn't it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, everybody misses. Can't bat 100, right? So fair enough. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you are new to us, please do hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on youtube.com/thecomicspals, if you are not, there is a way to follow or support the show wherever it is that you're checking us out. You might like our additional content, like our main show, which goes live on twitch.tv/thecomicspals every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. And Thursdays, we do Pals Pulls. Like I said, we review our books over there, our weekly comics, 6 p.m. Eastern every single Thursday. Thank you guys so much for listening. We always review the movies. So if you like this, we'll be back for the next one, whatever it is. Until then, we'll see you. Take care, guys.
See you next film.